This tutorial is on how to do a watercolour effect. I don't actually know what this effect's called, but that doesn't really matter. Let's give it a go anyway. So you need a picture which is going to look quite good in high contrast black and white, and then we're going to do a bit of arty stuff with it afterwards. So I started off with this picture, a nice black and white photograph taken by one of my students for Flashdance last year. And first thing we're going to do is go up to Image, and then, no, forget that, just 1 second, and we get on the correct layer. So you just have a background image, just ignore that mistake, it never happened. Image, adjustments, and brightness and contrast. Remember, if I'm going too fast on any of this stuff, you can just pause the video. So what we're going to go for is increasing brightness and an increase in contrast. Okay, so I quite like it somewhere around there, and then I'm going to click OK. It will take it depend on the image that you've got, and it'll take a little bit of kind of guesswork and practice to make it work with every image, and not every image, sadly, will work. Once you've got that, we then need to put a filter effect on. Now, if you've got CS6, this might be hidden in a slightly different place, but what we're actually after is filter and watercolour, which is under artistic and then watercolour. If you're in CS6, you'll need to go to filter gallery and then click on watercolour. So if we do that, your separate window will pop up, and the effect looks a little bit like when it finally kicks in, like that. It's like kind of speckled effect. You can play around. It doesn't make a massive difference if you move the sliders, to be quite honest, but it's kind of just a slight effect that we want. We don't want to go crazy. Click OK, and there it is. It gives us a slight boost in contrast as well, which is a bonus. The next thing is to go to actually really extreme contrast, which is up to Image again, adjustments, and then its threshold is the one you're after. And this gives you a like, it looks like levels almost, with a 1-point slider. Compared to old film style photography, this would be like the lith equivalent, LITH. So you could buy lith film, which just gave you just pure black and white. I'm going to move that slider until it looks like she's got bags under her eyes, so I'll just ease it back off from the bags under the eyes. Click OK on that. Okay, and then the reason for having this is we're going to use this high contrast black and white layer to create the mask that we're going to use. So as a slight side point, we need to make a blank layer, which is in the layer window, just there, blank layer, and we're going to fill that layer with white. Okay, so you'll need white as your foreground colour, so I've got black as my foreground colour at the moment. If they're not black and white, you just click on those and it will make them black and white, the smaller versions of them. And to swap them around is the little arrow or X on the keyboard will also do it. So white as the foreground colour, and then your tool that you want is the paint bucket, which is G on the keyboard, but it's part of the gradient family, hence the G. So paint bucket, and then you just click on the image, it'll just drop white completely in there, as you can see from my layer window. Ignore that top layer, I've just added some extra. So we've now got our high contrast layer and our clean white blank layer. Okay, go back to your background layer, so your high contrast layer, and now we're going to go Control and A or Command and A on a PC, and then Control and C or Command and C. So we've basically done edit copy on that, or select all, edit copy. Next, you'll need a colourful image. So I've already put one in on mine. So this is the one. I've just grabbed some paint. You could make the paint layer by just creating a blank layer using different brushes, different colours. That would be much more creative and much more control over what you've done than me blatantly stealing one off the internet for this use. Next is Command and D for deselect to get rid of your marching ants around the outside of your image. Now this next bit, you need to get this right or it will not work. So you need to go back to your, up to your colourful layer, your painted layer. If you've hopefully just put that one on, it will automatically be selected in the layer window. That's highlighted in blue. We're going to add a layer mask. Just zoom in for you. So layer mask just here. And then, this is the crafty bit, you have to press Alt and click on the actual mask itself, not the layer, the mask. Okay, very important. This is Alt, click, screen will go white because it will show you the mask, and then you're going to do Command and V, which will paste in, or Control and V, which will paste in that contrasted layer as the mask. So the mask is actually now identical to the contrasted layer. So all we need to do now is actually just click on the layer itself down at the end where there's nothing, and it will hopefully show us our image. Ta-da! That isn't ideally what I was after. What I wanted was the opposite of that. So I'm now just going to zoom in a bit and click on the actual mask itself. So it's currently got the layer selected. You see that little tiny box around the outside of it? So if I click on the mask, if I click on the mask, I'm working on the actual mask itself. And if I do Command and I, it will swap it round. And that is the actual effect I was after. So it's using that painted layer with the mask to create a slightly artistic image, which I quite like. So just to give you a few other examples, I've got this one here, which is Adam, one of my students. So you can see him, his face just in there with all the paint. And then I've got another one just here, so I've used a different layer on that one. And then I've got another one as well, which is I've done a Steve Jobs one, again stolen off the internet. And just as another idea of what you could try is you could put some like a paper layer. So I've just stolen paper layer off the internet and put that on. And if I go back to this top layer like that and change the layer style up here to multiply, anything white becomes invisible. So there I have my Steve Jobs image painted on paper. Nice.